Yo, welcome to Hard Pass. I am your host, Jacques Slade, and today we're talking about Drake's new Nocta collab, DJ Khaled's new Jordan collab, a review of WWE post-WrestleMania, plus we've got this week's hottest releases and Hard Pass. All right, let's start with our first story. During an episode of HBO Max's Winning Time, Magic Johnson passed on a deal with upstart brand Nike that included stock options worth $5 billion today, and opted to sign with a proven brand, Converse. It's a story we haven't heard all that much, but Magic admits it did happen.
But I give you stock. I never heard of stock at 19 years old. So I took the money, you said, I gotta take this cash, Man, I would have been a trillionaire by now. So that kills me every single time I think about that. And I'm like, man, Michael Jordan would have been making me so much money.
You can tell by the reaction that it does hurt him to this day, and knowing that he could have lorded that over Michael Jordan forever, that might hurt more than the $5 billion. Oh, by the way, Magic's net worth is $600 million, or $5 billion. Yeah, he'll be fine. Our friends at The Shoe Game posted this clip of Yeezy basketballs just sitting on a shelf waiting to be bought. See, we're getting closer to the dream, y'all. Now stop buying all those 350 colorways you don't even like, and we'll start to see more Yeezys for retail. The dream is within reach. I can feel it. Craig Green has unveiled a new sneaker with Adidas Originals, a prototype for the Reebok Pump, 35 years too late. Before we move to the next segment, shout out to Joe Freshgoods for the launch of the New Balance Conversation Among Us collection that tells the story of the Black experience and dialogue that needs to be had to bring the community together and inspire the next generation. Working with an all-Black product team at the brand, it's very cool to see stuff like this. That's it. That's the take. There's really no joke. We need more success stories like this in the sneaker world. Okay, let's do a rundown of the landscape of pro wrestling after a stupendous WrestleMania weekend. We waited to do this after the post-Mania Raw and SmackDown shows because they set the table for the next several months. All right, let's start with the big one, the return of the prodigal son, Cody Rhodes. After 6 years away building up his name in the indie circuit and becoming one of the founding fathers of AEW, Rhodes returned to fulfill what he always felt was his destiny, becoming a main event talent for the biggest wrestling company in the world. And to their credit, WWE has treated him like one. Instead of repackaging him or reviving one of his old mid-card characters, Rhodes returned with all of the gimmicks that made him popular, but a polarizing figure in the indies and AEW, from the obnoxious pyro to the overwrought theme song to the opulent gear that makes him look like a multiverse version of Homelander. As soon as the lights went out and people heard his royal family intro, the nearly 80,000 people at Cowboy Stadium were on their feet. They gave Rhodes a pop that would make Stone Cold Steve Austin proud. Of course, Austin would top that reaction later in the night with his amazing return to take on Kevin Owens, but that's such a high benchmark that it would be impossible for anybody, and I do mean anybody, to top that. Anyways, Cody got the victory at WrestleMania Saturday against Seth Rollins because, duh, Vince McMahon didn't hand over however big of a bag he gave Cody just to be a stepping stone again. We'll see if his comeback story leads to an eventual world championship run that his father, the late great Dusty Rhodes, never got to have in the then WWF. But right now, it'd be safe penciling that in, I would say, within the next 12 months. As for who he's going to take the title from, well, that's a little more murky. See, Roman Reigns just beat his longtime rival, Viking and Cowboy hybrid Brock Lesnar, to hold both WWE and Universal Championships. After months of actually showing up on TV and appearing to actually have fun, the normally curmudgeonly Lesnar is likely gone for a while, and we have no idea when he's coming back. This leaves Reigns and WWE creative team in a bit of a pickle. They can't have Cody beat Roman right away because there's a months-long story that could be told between those two and their respective family histories that could culminate in a big money match at next year's Mania. There's also the long-rumored match between Reigns and his cousin, a former wrestler turned actor you might know as The Rock, that could only take place at Mania. And there's always the looming presence of Lesnar, who's always down for a big payday. So that's 3 potential main events involving Reigns. But what do they do in the time in between? Are they really going to let Reigns hold both championships for a full year and risk burning out an audience? Will Cody win the championship before Mania, freeing up Reigns to have his The Rock match without any titles on the line? Can we just run back Kofi Mania, damn it? Will the WWE finally give us the long-awaited 4-horsewomen fatal 4-way match that fans have been dreaming of? Isn't it about time that they let Ronda Rousey play a heel, or at the very least a delusional one like everybody thinks she should be? What Jordan will Pat McAfee wrestle in next if he's taking the Shane McMahon memorial spot of part-time performer who likes to do flips and dives and J's? There's so many questions, and we haven't gotten to how AEW has responded to all of this WWE goodwill coming out of WrestleMania. I know one thing is for sure. It's going to be an interesting watch, and I'm going to enjoy it by not partaking in the cesspool that is wrestling Twitter. Don't let dorks with Chris Jericho profile pics ruin your day, Marks. It's more fun that way. All right, it's the Heat Check, where we bring you everything that's dropping this week. We have the Nike Dunk Low Cider on April 19th for $110. We have the Nike Dunk Low Next Nature on April 20th for $110. We have the New Balance Kawhi 2 Goosebumps on April 20th for $160. The Kids Air Jordan 1 Mid Tie-Dye on April 21st for $110. And then our Yeezy of the week is the Adidas Yeezy MNVN Geode on the 19th for $220. After a Yeezy Supply exclusive release late last year, this new colorway gets a wider drop. According to Wonderopolis.org, geodes are spherical rocks that contain hollow cavities lined with crystals. In volcanic rock, geodes start as bubbles. Geodes can form in areas far away from volcanoes too. In sedimentary rock, geodes start out as burrows, mud deposits, or tree roots. And then our pick of the week is the M&M's Adidas Forum 84 Low on the 19th for $150. What? I'm hungry. All right, let's do a heat check on Drake's new sneaker collaboration with Nike. After the release of the Nocta Nike Hot Step Air Terra that came and went like a random pair of Yeezy 500s, despite a nearly 2-year hype cycle, remember we first saw these during the Laugh Now Cry Later music video in August of 2020 when Drake turned an empty Nike campus into his own playground? It was time to regroup and refocus on what makes Drake's sneakers hot commodities during the OVO and Jordan Retro days. Cynically, the easy solution to that is to, just drop a basic Nike Dunk with OVO branding, make money, repeat. And honestly, they are doing that with the certified Loverboy Air Force Ones whenever that drops. Thankfully, that's not all they're doing, because last week we saw Drake sitting courtside at the Toronto Raptors game wearing a pair of never-before-seen kicks. While we can't see the whole sneaker, we here at Hard Pass are already way more interested in these than we ever were for the Air Terras. With pods on the midsole with carbon fiber detailing that brings to mind the iconic Nike Zoom Flight 95, I am very curious to see a complete picture of these kicks. Could this be some sort of hybrid mid-90s Nike basketball sneaker? If Drake's Nocta brand simply became a hub for old school designs to get updated for today's sensibilities, I would be all for it. Just give it a little more effort than the Air Terras and the CLB AF1s and we'll be good. Meanwhile, over at Adidas, Mark Dolce is raising an eyebrow. If you know, well, you know. And speaking of genius marketing moves, the man in the meeting finally showed off why he was in there the whole time. DJ Khaled has been posting up a storm showing off his new Jordan 5 collaborations. That's right, plural. And as you might expect from a Khaled joint, he gathered his friends and family to help celebrate the occasion. We've got Fat Joe licking them, as is custom for Fat Joe to do, Ye trying his best to stay interested, and Drake thinking to himself, yeah, my new Noctas are going to be more hype than these. And he might not be wrong. You can tell from the videos that Khaled is actually super excited for these to finally come out and be seen by the public. I've seen some people be down on these, critiquing them for being colorways that you might see on the kids' only pair of 5s. I personally can't really see myself rocking any of these sneakers except for the purple one for, well, obvious reasons, but I am happy for Khaled for finally getting a collab that will actually drop in stores. It's a rare achievement that not many entertainers get. I mean, Eminem hasn't had an actual drop of his Jordan PE since the Way I Am 2s, and that was forever ago. So congrats to Khaled, and I can't wait to see how he's going to annoy everybody with his countless catchphrases and Instagram posts, hyping these up until they drop. But it's well deserved. All right, it's time for this week's Hard Pass, where we take a look at something in the culture that just needs to go. like E3. It was announced last week that E3 will not be taking place in either physical or digital form, marking the first time since 1995 that there will not be a video game convention in the summertime called E3. And you know what? It was time. Because E3, as everybody knew it, died years ago before the pandemic came to finally shut the door. It was already just a shell of its former self that by the time the 2020 edition was canceled, most people were breathing a sigh of relief like, great. We don't have to waste money to fly to Los Angeles and check out games that are still in development and barely working and possibly catch a disease from the sea of nerds who have clearly given up on being hygienically correct. And no, I don't take back that part about nerds because I consider myself a nerd myself, but out of common courtesy and decency, I took a bath before every day I went to E3 and practically showered in Lysol every night to cleanse myself. And I know how it sounds. Oh, look at Jacques, sneaker guy who's flaunting that he got to go to E3. Does it even review games, bro? Look. If you lived in Southern California and you had a job tangentially related to media, it wasn't that hard to get an E3 badge. You either knew somebody that had the ability to get you a guest pass, or you applied for a badge yourself and said you worked for a lifestyle outlet. Sometimes those are more valuable than the badges the real game journalists got because all these companies want that exposure outside of traditional gaming outlets. Anyways, before I reveal too many more secrets, this was the takeaway I got from the people who had been going to E3 longer than I did, like Co-Writer, the actual real one. He dreamed of going to all of the conventions, whether it was Comic-Con, Nintendo Space World, Tokyo Game Show, CES, and by proxy, the AVN convention, which was next door. And the granddaddy of them all, E3. He would read stories, listen to podcasts, and watch videos of people living the dream, getting to try out new video games months before they came out in the presence of what we used to call booth babes. 2009 was a different time, kids. When he finally started working in media, he managed to check off a lot of the conventions on his bucket list, and even the AVN one. And yes, he took a long shower after that one as well. But for him, E3 was the North Star. And when he got his first badge in 2009, it was a dream come true. E3 2007 and E3 2008 were heavily criticized for being closed-door affairs that limited access to the wider consumer base. So 2009 was the big comeback year, and Co-Writer got to enjoy E3 as he dreamed it would be. He came home with enough free swag that he didn't need to buy Christmas presents for his nephews and nieces that year. He got to try games that were months away from coming out, and he's got a picture with one particular booth babe that he had zero chance of ever going out with. Sorry, Co-Writer, I had to do it. It's not like you made me sign an NDA when you told me the story anyway. As the years passed and I finally got to go to E3, the veterans who came before me would lament about how much the show had changed. I still had fun, don't get me wrong, but I got the sense that I missed out on the MJ winning three-peats era of E3. Instead, I was ensconced in the Wizards era of E3. For starters, some of the bigger games that were once just on the show floor for anybody to try was moved to upper levels of the convention centers where you needed an appointment and connections to get in. Then companies like Activision and Electronic Arts started to actually distance themselves from the show, hosting events around E3 without actually being a part of E3. Like, what does Eminem, NERD, and Usher having a concert at Staples Center have to do with Call of Duty? Beats me, but Co-Writer got a last-minute invite to check it out and grabbed a cab to Staples Center after he just finished recording a press conference wrap-up podcast in Koreatown. Now, look, I know that sounds highly specific, but just know that while K-Town to Staples Center might only be a few miles away on the map, it could take an eternity in traffic. Look, by the mid-2010s, Nintendo was no longer doing their giant press conferences at the former Nokia Theater, opting to do pre-recorded videos instead. It was a gradual decline that by the time E3 started actually selling tickets to the public in 2017, I actually felt bad for those kids because they weren't really going to get to see anything that special. Like, yes, that rush on the first day to get through the doors of South Hall and West Hall is a feeling that you can never duplicate. But you were paying for a show that had long lost its juice. In E3's heyday, you could spend an entire day at any of the Big Three's booths and try every game they had on display. By 2017, you had influencers and streamers hawking keyboards, doing stupid stunts, and hosting panels that you could just watch on Twitch or Mixer, RIP. Cole Ryder's last great E3 moment wasn't even a game he tried. It was scoring a pair of the PlayStation 4 Air Force Ones on the Sneakers app. That's cool and all, but for him, it doesn't compare to being one of the first people in the world outside of Nintendo to get hands-on time with Nintendo 3DS, or running into famed developers like Ed Boon and Ken Levine, or having drinks with editors of Electronic Gaming Monthly when the magazine was still good at the Hotel Figueroa after day 3. And besides, what would E3 actually look like in 2022? Probably more influencers and streamers that don't really require you to be there, and more brands trying to sell you everything but the games you want. It'd be fun if the show was free to get in, I guess, but not for $250 or $600 for the VIP badge. Microsoft now owns Bethesda and is waiting for the ink to dry on their acquisition of Activision, two companies that took a massive amount of space on the show floor once upon a time. Would they still have their booths at E3, or would they become a part of the Microsoft lineup, which last held an event at their own Microsoft Theater just outside of the convention center? Sony has their State of Play events and has had their own showcases in Las Vegas and other locations year-round, so they're not coming back. Honestly, I don't think Nintendo even cares anymore. They can just do their Nintendo Directs on any random Tuesday, announce a new limited edition Switch, and collect money from fans like Cole Ryder, who I will once again point out said with his whole chest that he was never buying an OLED Switch, but bought it the minute he saw one sitting on a shelf in Target. And even if E3 were to make a triumphant comeback like they claim to want to do in 2023, all the games that you really want to play, that's going to be out of reach, reserved for only the most top-level publications and celebrities. Shout out to the one year when everybody lost their mind when Ye showed up, though, and checked out Uncharted 4. So here's a toast, well, a metaphorical one to E3. I hope you can come back better than ever. Probably not, but you can try, I guess. Anyway, all right, that's going to do it for the show. Thank you guys for watching Hard Pass. I'm Jacques Slade. I'll see you next week, but not before I leave you with a listener Hard Pass.
MJ resists the comparisons of himself and Kobe. They are, he believes, unfair.
I mean, in some ways, it's, he's probably mentally tougher, because we had so many people who were, my fans who didn't appreciate the way that he was trying to emulate and steal my moves, and he proved himself. So in some ways, it was duplication is always harder than the original. He won 5 championships, and he stayed true to his course, which I respect 110%.
Huh. That sounds less like a voicemail and more of a clip from Jackie McMullen's podcast series for The Ringer, where she interviews Michael Jordan and MJ admits his fans don't appreciate greatness when they see it. If you would like to possibly be featured in a future episode, call us at 818-493-9325. Leave a short message, your socials if you want, no more than 30 seconds, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.